Okay, we're recording now. You can see it's indicated by the red flashing icon by my name as the host. So we're recording. Okay. Everyone should have the freedom to unmute yourself if you wish. We have fewer than 50 people on the line, so everyone's free to speak and unmute yourself as we go through. Thank you all for attending. This is designed more as an update and explanation of what we plan to do in response to us not hitting the savings of $3,564,000 that we wanted to achieve in this cycle for full layoff protection. So before I start a greater explanation of that, for those that are just joining us, we are recording this call. I see another 4 or 5 people just entered. I would like for the CAC to be able to reintroduce themselves to the group. Georgia, I see your face there. Do you want to start off and just introduce yourself again? You're muted. Okay.
Yuza. I'm Georgia Koo, and I'm a court manager with the Facilities and Security Division.
Great, thank you. I see you right there. Laura, could you say hi and introduce yourself? You are also muted.
Oh, there we go. I was trying to. My name is Laura Romero. I'm a staff attorney at the South Help Center, and I'm also your representative on the CEMA e-board.
Recently reelected, I would hasten to add.
Yeah. Yay.
And I see Ravi applauding. Ravi, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Ravi Ganji. I'm IT Applications Manager.
Wonderful. Also on the CAC. I'm looking, I don't see anyone else here. If someone else is on the CAC but is calling in, please feel free to introduce yourself. The CAC needs to meet and seat 2 new people who volunteered, so we will be doing that shortly. But anyhow, okay. So what we are going into right now is just one second. Someone's coming into the office. Hello. Okay. Do you need me to come out, or can you just drop it off? Thank you. Sorry, the mail person was just coming into the CEMA office here. Okay, so hopefully everybody got the email that was discussing the savings that we're attempting to achieve. What I'd like to review with everybody today is kind of what our options are as a unit and what we want to do. So I'll display my screen for a moment so everybody is on the same page. This was all included in the email. I believe this is everyone seeing a document saying preliminarily we met our target? Okay, great. I see some nodding heads. Okay, so here's the scoop. I'm going to be highlighting things which you can also see. We initially met our target, which is right here. I'll be jumping around a little bit, of $3,564,000. However, we met that for 2 reasons, and I'm going to go to the spreadsheet in a second. One is that we previously had 2 more VSIPs, which were worth about $200,000, and the court was incorrectly crediting us with furlough savings for the people who were taking advantage of VSIP, right? Which doesn't make sense. They're not going to get that double dip. The people are leaving court employment, so the fact that they're furloughed doesn't create any savings, right? It's a phantom savings. So that caused us to lose out on what we originally thought because people exercised their rights, right? People chose to withdraw from the VSIP. That's up to you all, but you're the ones that have to live with that decision. So people decided they didn't want to retire or separate, depending on the case. So that caused us to drop from this $3,564,000 number to this number, $3,427,665. So we are now short by $136,335 for complete layoff protection. So what mechanisms do we have in order to address this? Well, we have several. The best, in my opinion, is if 12 people took a 10% reduction, that would likely equal the 136, or if 6 people took a 20% additional VRWH, we would likely meet our goal. Why I say likely is it really depends on what the value of those classifications are, right? If a very highly paid CEMA member takes that, a 20% reduction, it's worth significantly more than if the lowest paid CEMA member takes that reduction. So that's why I can't with perfect clarity say 3 people must take this and that will equal the savings. It depends on who the 3 people are. So we have a couple, as I mentioned, a couple of options. One is that more people sign up for VRWH. We have until September 18th to make that decision. Another option is to reopen negotiations with the court, which I really do not endorse, and I'll explain why in a second. And another option is to just say, that's fine. We almost reached our savings. The 136,000 represents about 1 position. It's conceivable 1 or 2 people will get laid off. So let me explain kind of the thought process with all of those options, and CAC, feel free to jump in with others, or members, feel free to jump in with others. Okay, if we hit our VRWH, or excuse me, our total savings challenge, a goal of 3,564,000, through VRWH prior to September 18th, there's no discussion or argument with the court. We receive layoff protection through June 14th, 2021, case closed. Okay. That relies on a couple of things. It means that a lot of people have to be willing to take an additional pay cut in exchange for additional days off. Maybe there's no appetite for that. I don't know. Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2 is to reopen negotiations with the court. Why I think this is a bad option and would recommend against it is that our numbers were based on a $12 million pro rata share of deficit for the court. Since then, that number has gone up. It's now more than $16 million, and that's the number that the court used in negotiations with Skippy as Skippy came to an agreement later. And as you know, they have a higher deficit to make up. They're experiencing the same kind of furloughs we are, and they had, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 46 layoffs? I don't want to get the number wrong. Is that right? Approximately 46 layoffs. If somebody knows, feel free to correct me.
So it was 26 plus 9, so it's 30, 35? Isn't it 26? How many Fridays? I forget.
52.
52, that's right.
Okay, thank you. So in addition to the layoffs, they're having the Fridays off, which is a different mechanism than ours, which is fine. So if we were to reopen negotiations with the court, what I would fully expect the court to say is, we originally gave you the $3,564,000 target. Our number has gone up. You now have a $4 million something target. So I would not anticipate that those negotiations would be favorable to CEMA. If that's the will of the membership, we'll certainly do it. But I would not recommend it. I think we have a better agreement now. The third sort of option, if you will, is to knowingly do nothing, right? Is to say, okay, well, we're short $136,000. That may represent 1, maybe 2 positions. Here's the challenge with that option. The court now would, if we don't meet this number, has the freedom to lay off as many people as they want. It's not like they're restricted to lay off only to meet the 136,000. They could just say, oh, well, we're actually laying off 5 people because we need a buffer. So there is that risk as well. So each of the options has a risk, right? The renegotiating with the court, I think, is the most risky. That means we'll just have a higher target, which we're unlikely to meet in my view. The just ignoring it, not ignoring it, but knowingly saying we're not going to get that number of $136,000 right here in savings. So we're going to just let the court do what it will. We may avoid all layoffs. The court may have viewed us as a valuable partner and won't lay anybody off, or they could lay off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, however many they deem necessary. And then the other risk, which we're trying to mitigate of the VRWH issue, is if people volunteer, we want to make sure that people volunteer and we hit that target. So that's why we're offering this down here, that CEMA will hold VRWH applications so members can all agree to have VRWH only if it exceeds the necessary $136,000 goal. So let's pretend 2 people wanted to do VRWH and no one else signs up, You'd email that to Ravi Ganji, whose email is right down here in the e-blast that went out. And we'd alert you on the 17th prior to the 18th deadline. Hey, look, it didn't trigger. Do you still want to, just for your own reasons? Maybe you want more days off, or you don't need the money because you're, whatever, your stocks are doing really great or something, or you have a wealthy spouse or whatever it is. Then that's a possibility as well. But we want to at least offer that people can have a lower risk willingness to participate, knowing that if we don't hit the 136,000 target, you'll be asked again, do you want us to submit this on your behalf or not? So that's the way that we wanted to kind of respond to that. Ravi, can you share if you've received any requests for VRWH at this point? I see you shaking your
No,
head.
I did not.
Okay. So that's the outline that I have. I'm going to also share the spreadsheet. I don't know if all of you have seen this. Our court advisory committee has, but I don't know if everyone has. It doesn't really provide much more information, but let me share it anyway. I think I'll make it just a little bit bigger. I don't know if people can see this. Okay, so here's the numbers that we're looking at, and this is where we're coming from. Hopefully you can see what I'm highlighting here. Can people see this, or should I make it bigger? Sharon, were you shaking your head? No, you can't see it? Okay, I'm gonna make it bigger.
No, I don't need it any bigger.
Okay.
It's taking up the whole screen.
Okay, great. So here you'll see this is 80% of the original deficit of 15 million. We negotiated that we were only responsible for 80% of it, which at that number of 15 million has gone up. 29.7% is our payroll load, so that's what we're responsible for. And these are the savings we've already achieved. So that means we're short the 137,000 and a little bit of change. Here's where the savings are coming from right now. Furlough, 10% of salary. That's getting us 1.8 million and change. And you'll see this deduction here for the 18 or approximately 18 people, 16 now, I believe, that took VSIP. So we're losing out on that because we're not going to realize any savings from them. VSIPs, voluntary separations, the additional savings towards the court, more than $1 million. 2 people chose to withdraw, as I mentioned. Long-term leaves, we had 2 applications, which totaled 355,000, an average of 177,000 per person. And then VRWH, to date, we only have 3 people participating in that, which averages about 17,000 per person. As a reminder, you all, I see someone posted something. You all are able to take any amount between 10 and 20%. So the floor is 10%, the maximum is 20, but you could take 15, or the language is silent. I guess theoretically you could take 13%. I don't know what that translates to for a year, but maybe you come up with it, so with a certain number of days you want to take off, and that's equivalent to 12.5% or something, and then you game that out. So I just wanted to provide that as context so we can try to make a decision here as to how we want to proceed. The other, someone is texting me. I'm not going to reveal their name because they privately texted me. Is it possible that an extra furlough day be added to the existing ones to accomplish the budgetary goals? That way everyone equally stomachs the burden rather than just 12. That is possible. I'm stopping the share right now. That is possible. However, we would again face the deficit of, we would have to approach the court and make that suggestion. And the court would have to mutually agree upon it. I would not be surprised if the court said, that's a great suggestion. You now need to make up $4 million something dollars, not the 3, not the 100,000 you're short. So it is a possibility that we make that suggestion. If that's what the will of the membership is, we'll certainly do that. How I would float that is I would approach the court and say, there's interest in taking an additional furlough day. However, that's the only thing we wish to reopen. Is the court amenable to allowing 1 additional furlough day to capture that? If so, we'll craft a mutual reopening of the agreement that we have. I have it right here, of the furlough side letter agreement, right? And only for the purposes of upping the furlough day. Nothing else will be under discussion. that's how I would approach that to put these barriers on it. So I don't know if that's an appealing option to people, or we want to really encourage folks to take VRWH. If Ravi has received no input, then that's problematic. Thank you, Nuala, for letting us know. This will be recorded and uploaded. So thank you for joining us. I see we're up to 35 participants at the moment. So I kind of want to hear from you all as to what of the options you think is best. There's not a great option, right? In my view, there's kind of like, so I'll put it in chat what the options are, so everyone's very clear. Or if you identify a different, and thank you for that. This is a new option, right? So option 1, extra furlough day, and that's a maybe, right? We don't know if the court will accept that. Get VRWH volunteers. Renegotiate entire agreement. Or accept shortfall, I guess is how I'll characterize this. Just say, yep, we're short. Do what you will, court. And we do have the layoff protection regardless from now through the end of pay period 10. So everybody should just be aware that that's an existing feature of the contract, or the side letter, I should say, no matter what. But we can certainly expect action from the court after the 10th if no further savings are made up.
So Zeb, just to be clear, pay period 10 is right around November 30th, correct?
It's in November. I don't know the exact date. I don't have the pay period schedule, the payroll schedule with me. Oh, I see, Kim, you have your hand up. Please, I'm going to lower your hand, but go ahead and state your comment.
I just have a question about the voluntary reduced work hours.
Mm-hmm.
If we get, like, say everybody decides they're going to put it in because it's all going to be on hold, right? They put in the application. So then how would we determine, or how would we determine who would actually have to take it? Or, I mean, would you have to just say, I'll take it no matter what, or only if we meet the shortfall?
I would want people to share it only if they would take it if we met the shortfall. If you want to take it no matter what, alert us that you're doing it, and like double submit to the court and alert us. But if you want to take it no matter what, go ahead and do it now. But we certainly want to know to capture that.
Okay, so the ones that are on hold, it'll just, if we get a whole bunch of them, then what will you do?
If we got a whole bunch of them, like let's say it exceeds the number that we needed, I would process all of them anyway, because it would be very difficult for us as the union to adjudicate who wanted, like everybody's then going to want to withdraw, or I would imagine people would, right? It's like, oh, so 15 people applied for 10% and we only needed 12. Well, which 12 would equal it? Like I would just process all of them. Okay. I don't want to put myself or Ravi in a circumstance to say, guess what, Joe, we're accepting yours, and guess what, Jane, we're rejecting yours. Like if you're willing to take that, then you're willing to take it.
Okay. And then our accruals, if we apply for it, and we take the VRWH, our accruals will stay the same, and our retirement income will be the same.
Your accruals stay the same. We're in a dispute right now at the county, not in the court, at the county as to whether or not your accruals stay, or excuse me, whether your pension formula stays the same for purposes of PEPRA. I believe we are on solid ground saying that it does. The county is claiming that it doesn't, but PEPRA is siding with us saying that it does. So my interpretation right now is that it does, that for purposes of retirement, you use your elevated salary, your regular salary.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions here. Let me see. One is private. Okay, I'm not going to name the person, but it's a general question about what has administration brought to the table in terms of reductions. So that's part of, I don't know. That's part of the reason why we negotiated the 80% of the $15 million shortfall. Is we said, court, you figure out how you're cutting that 20%. You have to cut that from contracts, from executive pay. Executives are going on furloughs as an example, from executives, from whatever it is that else that you can save, building funds, whatever. You figure that out. We're not going to argue with you about what the particulars are. We're just responsible for 80%. So I don't have specific examples other than the furloughs that the executives are taking as to what they have cut. Okay. Sepulveda looks like. Two questions. One, if we opt not to renegotiate the side letter, wouldn't it be the same as accepting the shortfall and letting the court? Yes, that's true. Oh, did I state that option twice? Yeah. Oh, I guess I could have put accept shortfall, comma, do not renegotiate. Okay, for option 4. That is correct, Mr. or Mrs. Sepulveda. 2, if we take the 15% VRWH in addition to the 10% we are already taking. Oh, is it in addition? Yes. So any VRWH is in addition to the 10% furlough. So if you take a 10% VRWH, think of it as a 20% loss of pay. You're getting days off in exchange for that, but it's a big hit to anybody's budget. Right? Everyone needs to be fully aware of that it is in addition to, it's not in replacement of. Someone is privately mentioning formula stays the same, but you may not get a full year. Okay, so someone is confirming what I said, and they're saying you may not get a full year of service credit because the days that you are not present. So if it's your highest year, you may not, you may not get a full year of service credit because you're not working those days. So that's a good clarification. Thank you for that. Okay, so if there are any other questions, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, we're going to kind of have to be in a decision-making mode as to how we want to proceed.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please, Laura.
Yeah, so because it sounds like you had put out there, are there any other suggestions? Really, it's kind of limiting in the sense that we, the only option available to us, just easy peasy, is going to be the voluntary reduced hours. Because if we go back to the agreement that we made with the court, going back to that agreement and trying to change any of those terms is going to invite possibly opening up the whole contract. And that's what really the fear is, and having that baseline change on us. So if we were to say, could we, I think somebody came up with that suggestion, extra furlough day. I mean, that would be awesome. But that just, to be able to do that, we would need first to have the court agree that they would be willing to reopen the contract or that agreement only for that issue. And that would be the approach. So at this point, I think we're really just looking at voluntary reduce. And remember, it could be in increments of 5% in addition to the 10% furlough. It could be 10%, 15%, or 20%. We could be maximum of 30% off. So that's really what we're looking at this stage. And let me know, Zeb, if there's anything inaccurate there.
Nope.
But that was my understanding.
You're
if you submit your app, you could do anything between 5% to 20% in your application. And so we can have maybe more people take the lesser amount, and that is a spreading it out, which will be
it's between 10 and 20, 10 and 20%.
10 to 20. And that spreads it out, which will be kind of close to having more people having the renegotiation of furlough, but for people who could maybe afford it. So I think that the voluntary reduce might be a better option than renegotiating for additional furlough. That's just my 2 cents.
Is
Thank
that
you for listening.
And here I'm just displaying the why I'm saying it's between 10 and 20%. Employees may elect to have their work hours and pay further reduced on a voluntary basis, VRWH, minimum of 10% and maximum of 10%, or 20%, excuse me.
As
Okay,
a-
so it's, sorry, go ahead.
Right, Laura, so this is Georgia. I just want to ask a quick question about what the scenario you have raised. So let's say the group here decided that we all going to take a equal share and then maybe take a 5% pay cut across the board for all CEMA members to make up that $200,000 or 136,000 something shortfall. That's close to, having one extra furlough day. The question I have is, we also have non-dues paying CEMA members. Now, they're not voting here. So if, let's say, hypothetically, all CEMA members says, yeah, let's take an equal share. We will take a 5% voluntary reduced work, do those members who are not paying then have to follow that out and take that lion's share as well? They don't have a say, correct?
Correct. It's not, they wouldn't take a lion's share. It's not like we would say non-dues paying members take 2 days off and dues paying members take one. They are represented by the union in broad negotiations, whether they want to be or not. It's a question of whether they want to have membership and a say.
So I guess
Okay.
we all take, let's say, an equal amount, saying 5%. Yeah, the higher paying salary members may get ding more or do, I guess what I'm saying is 136,000, if we divvy it up again, amongst all the CEMA members, what are we looking at? Like, is 10,000 from each of us in addition to our furloughs? I mean, I said,
so look, let's say, for instance, let's do some quick math, right? We have approximately 105 members after the retirements, and we need to make up a shortfall of $137,000, right? So $137,000 divided by 105 equals $1,304 per person. So
Okay.
that's what we need to come up with if we want layoff protection. So it's not a 5% cut. It's much less than that.
So can we specifically say 1,304 each member is willing to take that amount of, percentage or amount off their salary?
That's
and
possible.
divide
Again, that would involve a willingness on the part of the court to engage, and you all would have to be willing to do that, right? To take
Right.
an extra 4 hours off or whatever that corresponds to. So it's going to.
But wouldn't that be the
Go ahead.
taking, let's say, reduced work hours or, like however that equivalent to, you said it's less than 5%. Is 5% the minimum of VFWH?
Yes. No, 10% is the minimum, not 5%.
Okay, so we have to take 10%.
Right.
Okay.
So there are some other questions here that I want to address. Someone is raising the issue of the commissioner. Yep, it's outrageous in my view, and then maybe this is an unpopular position with the membership. I don't know. I think it's outrageous that at the same week that they laid off, maybe it was a week later, the same week that they laid off 40 or 50 people, that they hired a commissioner. So that's it's a hugely tone deaf move by the bench, but the bench chose to do that. They get to administer the court, they get to administer the budget, and we get to point out how it's wrong. We cannot, however, say, we can say it, we can't demand it. We can't say, fire that new commissioner and give you the savings to CEMA so you don't have to lay off a CEMA person. So it's a legitimate issue to raise. It's not determinative. It's not like we can say, you have to get rid of that person because we don't want to have layoffs.
Do we
Okay,
know if they're grant funded?
they are not grant funded.
Some of
Aren't
them
one
are.
or two of the commissioners are?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Sorry. Some of the commissioners are grant funded. The newly hired one is not grant funded. They
That's correct.
chose to add a new commissioner that was not grant funded, that is paid for by the operational budget of this courthouse. So hopefully that club, but you are correct in stating, I believe 2 of the commissioners that were pre-existing are grant funded.
Child
Hey.
support commissioners are grant funded.
I'm sorry?
Child support commissioners are
Yes.
grant funded.
Thank you. So this person is clarifying that child support commissioners are grant funded. Thank you for that.
So
Okay,
there are
so-
2. Hey, Zeb, I have another question.
Well, hang on. There are a bunch of people before you, Georgia, that have put questions. So let me address some of those. Can you clarify? This is a private question. If you don't need it to be private, I won't mention your name. But if you can share the questions with everyone, so everyone can see the questions piling up. I've got 4 privately communicated to me. Can you clarify whether a CEMA member can be bumped back into a Skippy position? Yes, you can. There's a whole video about how layoff language works, and it's on our YouTube page. It was sent out to the court membership on how layoff language works when and if there are layoffs. And this ties into another question that's being asked. Yes, somebody can be bumped back into a CEMA position. There are 2 ways that can happen. Number 1, if you have a permanent underlying class. What does that mean? That's fancy talk for if you ever passed your probation in a Skippy code. Okay, maybe somebody was a legal process clerk and then promoted to be something else. You could be bumped back into that position. Another way that you could is if you are laid off, you can look around for any vacant funded codes and claim it. There probably aren't very many vacant funded codes in the court, if any, at this point. So that's an unlikely scenario. But if you have more seniority and you held a prior permanent class, you can kick someone out of the way and claim that position. So that's another way that you could be bumped or demoted, however you want to look at it, into a Skippy position. Someone else asks, are dues paying CEMA members taking the brunt of this VRWH because we receive notifications on the status of negotiations versus non-dues? No, and I answered this in part with I believe George's question, which is everybody who is CEMA represented takes whatever cuts we agree to, or is subject to layoff for that matter. It's not like only dues paying members take the reductions. It's everybody that is in a CEMA represented code. The difference is that you get to participate and be a part of these meetings and votes. A public question from Anke. I hope I'm saying your name right, Anke. How long would the additional 10% pay cut last? Would we get the 3% increase next August that was in the contract? Yes. So we have not renegotiated our contract. The 3% increase continues. For that matter, you guys just got a 3% increase. We could conceivably give that back and then get layoff protection, right? I don't think that's a good idea, but that is another, I guess it's a 5th option, right? How long would the additional 10% pay cut last? I'm assuming you mean 10% if you went on VRWH. If you chose to be on VRWH, it lasts the remainder of this fiscal year. That's the 10 through 20% VRWH cut. Laura Romero, one of our CAC members and board members, CAC members, I should say, asks, sorry for confusing oh, you're not asking, you're clarifying. It's 10% or 20% is the. Elizabeth Derby asks, if we approach the court to reopen and assuming that they do impose our portion of the additional budget deficit, how does that math work out? So unknown, or we could guess based on a $17 million deficit. Let's do that. If they claim, and this is all speculative, but the question was asked, so I'll do it. Let's say we're responsible for only an 80% portion of a $17 million deficit, then we'd be responsible for 13.6, and then we'd be responsible for 29% of that. So our target number with all these ifs would be $3,944,000. I'm going to share screen again, and I'm sure I'm losing some people now. The finance folks will follow this well. Based on 12 million, now we're increasing that to 13. Our goal here was 3,564,000. That would go up to 3,944,000. So now instead of us having a 137 delta, let me do this, minus 3,564. We would have a 300, I'm just going to put 380 theory. Our savings requirement would go up by a lot if they were to implement the actuals that they just realized. Okay, I'm stopping that share. Okay, so hopefully that if you have any further clarifying questions, please post that, Elizabeth. A private one. Yes, I am aware that you're not talking about the child support commissioner and that you were talking about the new one that was not funded by the grants. And I think everybody's aware of that. The commissioner, or hopefully now everyone is, the new commissioner that was hired is not grant funded. Sharon Roper asks, as the court's budget shortfall was 16 million versus the 12 million. Okay, thank you. It's not prudent to reopen the CEMA contract. It is highly likely the court will want CEMA to increase its goal. That's right. I was using a $17 million number. If we even used your more conservative $16 million number, then it would be. It would be more. It would be a little bit. It would be about half of that, though. Georgia, where does the commissioner non-grant funded come from? I assume they were not included in the 80%. No, it comes from the court general operational budget. So that's the 20% that the court is administering. This is an interesting question. Is it possible that all CEMA members write a personal check for the amount of the shortfall so we don't have to renegotiate with the court? It's not. I mean, we would need to have the court accept the personal check. Is it possible that we just say, look, everyone will write you a check for $1,000 something? Sure, but the court has to say, I'm willing to accept that check in exchange for full layoff protection. So is that a possibility? Yeah, it is. I think that if the court were willing to do that, we would get an exchange. But yes, that is a possibility. Okay, I believe that's answered all of the questions. And Georgia, you had said something. I'm checking to see if anyone's hand is raised. No. What was you? Sorry, Georgia, you wanted to do something. And Laura has a comment as well.
No, I put my question for clarification regarding the commissioner's salary and if that was part of the 80% or not. So, but you answer that.
Okay.
Is that?
That's correct.
So I had thrown out 5%. I'm sorry about that, guys. I wish it was 5%. That'd be easy. But the contract says minimum 10%, maximum 20% reduction. Wouldn't that mean that in theory I could request 15% voluntary reduced
Absolutely.
hours? Okay, because I thought I heard you say only 10 or 20, but it's between.
Anything in between. I mean, you could do 11, and I don't know if they do half percentage, but you could do 11% or something if you wanted to.
Got it.
And the only reason I can imagine people, I mean, maybe there's a different reason, but why you would want to do that is because you would game out, well, what equals 3 days or whatever it is that you want, and then select that. I have a private request question, and I'm just going to answer this for everybody. No, guys, I am not going to be able to look at your individual pay stubs and advise you as to what percentage of VRWH you should take. That's entirely up to you. If you have questions about, like, if you want to ask, well, I can afford an $800 cut every 2 months. What does that equal? Please work with HR to game that out. One is that I would have serious reservations that I might make an error. And the other is it's just outside the scope of representation. I wouldn't want to give you some wrong information or advise you about a percentage that you're then ultimately uncomfortable with. So you'd have to go to HR and finance to do that if you're interested. Okay. And as a note, the person who can you clarify who just texted me privately that you have submitted for VRWH? Is that outside of the 3 applications we received? Are you currently on VRWH or you're a new VRWH applicant? New. Okay, thank you very much. I will add you to our list. Could you do me a favor, and I'm not going to reveal your name, but could you email Ravi at that email address to just alert him that you have submitted? If anyone who is not in the foundational 3 also submitted for VRWH, please email Ravi. Ravi, can you post your email address for everybody? Thank you so much for agreeing to do that. So that's helpful. I've got apparently 2 people are privately communicating that they both requested a 10% VRWH. So that's helpful to know. And it sounds like you all are doing that regardless, but be sure to clarify that with Ravi. Okay, so we have to come to some kind of a conclusion here. We could do a snap poll and treat it as like a vote. We could decide on the call. I'm going to repost these. This is what we're looking at. An extra furlough day, get more VRWH volunteers, renegotiate the side letter with those bumpers on it and say we have to come up with a way to get the 1,000 per person, or accept the shortfall. So there was also the other option introduced, which is, well, what if we just cut a check per person? There's a number of challenges with that. There's a challenge with all of these. The challenge with that is, again, the court has to be willing to accept it, right? You can't force the court to acknowledge the savings that you're giving through a personal check or a suspension of wages or something. So of these options, can people put in chat? We have 38 participants, so I'd expect to see 30 or so answers. Can you put in how you want us to proceed? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Someone is asking privately, can we reach out to non-dues paying members? Yeah, I mean, we can, but if they want to seek VRWHs, that's fine. We're credited. Like, let's say people on this chart, I'm going to share the chart again, or no, I'm not. You've seen it. If somebody retired that wasn't a dues paying member, or somebody left who was on long-term leave who's not a dues paying member, we still get credit for that. It's a CEMA represented code. It's not CEMA member. So just so there's some clarity on that. But yeah, we can let people. Some people are texting me privately. Some are public. I'm just going to make a hash sheet here. Feel free to message me privately or publicly. Answers are still coming in. To Elizabeth, to your question, one was the renegotiate, right? The extra furlough day. Yeah, we can approach the court on that. It's not risky if we just ask, are you open to discussing that narrowly? There's zero risk to that. The court will say yes or go away. We're not, right? If they say we're not willing to do that, then we would not engage in negotiations, right? It would be a very tentative one. Okay, so I'm not taking into account secondary preferences right now. Oh, we got a couple more coming in. Okay, I've got 15, 16 for number 2, and I have 7 for number 1. So it seems number 1 is the clear winner, or excuse me, number 2. Number 2 is the clear winner. I'll just post this here so everyone will see what I have. 1 has 7. That's very awkward. 1-7 is what I'm going to put. And option 2 has 16. So 2 seems to be the clear winner. I'm a little concerned because we've put out the call and we only have 2 people who have volunteered, which isn't going to at the smaller 10% number. So that can be our strategy. We can go for number 2. For it to be successful, we're really going to need a fair number of people, either 6 at the 20% or probably 12 at the higher 10% to participate. But we can certainly hold it in abeyance, right? We will email those to Ravi and keep them in a holding pattern unless we've achieved that higher number. We've got the 137.
So, Jeff?
Okay. Oh, thank you,
this is
Sharon,
Ravi. I have a
for
question.
clarifying that. It sounds like you were waiting. And we can draft another email to everybody that we're preparing this and we're holding things in abeyance until, the 17th or so to figure it out. And yes, we can approach. Right now we have 3 CAC members on. What is your preference? I mean, I realize we just expressed the preference of the membership is to have a VRWH day. Does it benefit us to approach the court and say we're interested in an extra furlough day or not? Like, it seems like if people are saying VRWH, maybe that's what we do instead of approaching the court and having everyone have a furlough day.
An extra furlough day is equivalent to another 10% for everybody. So we'd still be essentially everybody's going to be hit.
But it's
whereas with voluntary,
it's not 10%, right? So 20, if we have 20-40 hours in a work year, wait, 1040, it's 2080, sorry. 2080 divided by 8 is 260 days. So 1 day someone help me with that. 260 days, if you lose 1 day of pay, you're losing 0.4 something percent.
You would need to prorate it.
So 2.6 days equals 1%. Okay, thank you. 26 days equals, yeah, okay, there we go. So if we did another day of furlough, you'd be losing, yeah, 0.33% approximately, 0.4%. So that would be the option, Laura. It would, just so everyone's clear, losing 1 day is not a 10% reduction in pay. 1 furlough day. If you did 1 furlough day per pay period, then you're correct. Then it's huge, right? So maybe that's where the 10% was coming from. That one, because we all have a lot of numbers floating around in our head, right? But yes, one furlough day per pay period is a 10% cut. Because think about it, that's real simple math. You work 10 days approximately. You work 10 days. If you cut 1 of those out and now you're only working 9, you just lost 1/10 of your income, right? Yeah, that's where the 10% comes from. Okay, so as I said, number 2 is the clear winner for this group. We will pursue that internally. Is there a desire from the membership that we reach out to the court and get an alternate proposal, or do you like the VRWH? Purely VRWH is what we're pursuing at this point.
I think this is Ravi. I believe we should reach out to the court and ask if they are willing to discuss about additional furlough days. At least we know the pulse of what the court. If they say no, or they say yes, we are willing, but we need to looking for bigger budgetary gap means, then it gives us a clear sense then to decide if we need to take additional voluntary reduced hours to have that protection for the layoffs.
Okay. And there's not a harm. I mean, we could reach out and it would just be another option we could present. I think that the concern with that is that it may further weaken our ability to get members to sign on to VRWH if people are just like, oh, well, I'm hoping that there's some other thing that comes up. But okay, so we will, what's the rest of the CAC think on that? Or members, anyone's free to voice, but I'm particularly interested in the CAC. Kim's agreeing with Ravi to reach out, okay. Elizabeth Derby is as well, Rowena is. Yes, Fariba, yes, we did vote for 2. So 2 is how we are going to proceed regardless. What we're discussing is it worth reaching out to the court as well to see if there's another option? So 2 is our strategy from now until the 18th, case closed. If there's some other option, that's what Ravi is suggesting we pursue. Maybe people would like a furlough day or something, but we'd put it to you to vote. Yeah, Laura, that's what we do. Okay. So the direction that I'm getting from you all is we'll proceed with option 2, and we'll publicize that to the group, and then we'll reach out to the court and see if they have an entertainment to see if there is anything that's available for furlough or not. And the furlough calculation is, it would probably be more than 1 day, would be my guess. And the flip side of that too, and I don't want to get people's hopes up, I am trying to get us credit for a particular savings that is not covered in this agreement, and we'll see if that happens or not. So if it does, it really makes the goal a lot easier, but we'll see what happens. So, okay. It would just be an option. So for those of you that know it's not in vain, 2 is how we're proceeding. You'll get an email from us later today or tomorrow on that, and then we will approach the court with back channels as well. So I apologize, we were scheduled for half an hour. We're significantly over that. But yeah, Georgia, you have a layoff question?
Yes, so if I want to just maybe perhaps you can go into a little bit about the layoff. So if you were hired into your current position and you never held another position in the court, so then do you have bumping rights or you don't? Let's say if I was hired into my current position as court manager, I've never held another position with the court or a lower position. So am I allowed, do I have that right to bump a lower position or no?
I don't believe so, but I've been talking with the county about this right now. So you're catching me. I was not prepared to talk about that in this meeting. Let me look at the contract.
Because again,
I don't believe so,
a
but let me.
A more specific hypothetical is that as a court manager, if I was hired into as a court manager and I never held a deputy court manager or an analyst or a LPS position, if my position was to be laid off and the person says you're no longer needed, am I allowed to say, can I bump somebody in the deputy court manager or LPS, or am I out of luck?
I don't believe so, but here, I'm looking at the layoff procedures right now.
I think that is important for our membership to understand, because
But
if,
Georgia,
let's say,
just to be clear though, I mean, I did go over all of this in a recorded statement earlier. I just am not familiar. Because I've been dealing with the county budget crisis, and there's a difference in the contracts and the layoffs. So the answer is whatever I said previously that's recorded on the YouTube page.
Because I got a lot of that question after that YouTube. So I think the answer is no. Zeb, I think you and I had a subsequent conversation, and I think the answer is no. But I don't know if the memberships on now or all of our memberships understood that.
Okay, so here's displacement, what we call as bumping. If the employee in court cannot agree to an in-placement position, so again, in-placement is if you try to claim a vacant funded position, right, which is possible. So you get a layoff notice, you've never held another position in the court. You've never held another position in the court. You've only held that one. You look around and see if you qualify for any other vacancies in the court. I don't believe there are any right now. Okay, but let's pretend there were, you could claim one that you're qualified for. If not, you go into displacement. So let me read this. If an employee and the court cannot agree on an in-placement position in accordance with section blah, 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 and there are no available positions as defined above, so, right, there's nothing available for you to grab, the employee may exercise displacement or bumping rights. An employee with previous regular status in a classification shall have the right to claim that position most recently held by displacing the least senior person where the employee has seniority greater than at least one or more persons in that code. This person shall be displaced. In the event that the employee does not have enough seniority to claim a position under section 14.6 above, that's what I just read, the provisions of that section shall be applied to every subsequent lower level classification in which regular status was formerly held. So the answer is no. If you have never held a position other than the one you currently hold, you cannot bump anyone else. You can't say, get out of my way, office specialist. I've been here for 30 years in my, court manager code. I'm claiming your code because you only have 5 years. If you've never held an office specialist code, you cannot bump that person. Now, if there's a vacant office specialist code, presumably you're qualified to do that work if you were a deputy court manager or court manager. So you could claim that vacant code. Claiming is different than displacement. Displacement is you kick another person out of that code, right? Claiming is, hey, there's a vacant accountant code, no one's in it. What do you know? I've got an accounting credential. Sign me up, right? So the answer to your question, Georgia, is no. You do not have a right to bump or displace somebody else from that code. And I thought that was the answer, but I wanted to just double check because I don't want to give the wrong answer and then a lot, the 39 people on this call think that they are able to kick someone out and they can't.
And Zeb, I just want to confirm, based on your current knowledge right now, we do not have any vacant codes in CEMA that you know of, because the last time prior to this negotiation started, they had a list of vacant codes. Predominantly, the vacant codes were in IT.
That's correct.
Now, understanding is there's none.
So here's the unknown portion. We just had a bunch of separations from the court. It's unknown which, if any of those, will be backfilled. At the time that we made the information request most recently, there were not vacant funded positions. There were vacant positions, but that doesn't do any good if there's no dollars attached to them, right? So that's the key, is what is it that's vacant and funded? And is the court able to are we able to claim those positions? Claim is the right word, not bump. Are you able to claim those positions? If the court has chosen, let's pretend 3 really critical people left and they want to backfill those positions, the court can claim that those are now funded if it has the money to direct to those. And then someone could claim that. But I would be skeptical. And when and if layoffs happen, that's something that we automatically ask for, is give me a list of vacant funded codes. So we'll have a sense of that as we get closer to this, if it even happens, right? Okay, so thank you to everyone in attendance. I really appreciate it. This will be uploaded, and we are going to be pursuing number 2. So a letter will go out to everybody probably tomorrow. I've got to return to a PERB hearing for a court member now, and you will see that probably tomorrow. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.